Hello, my beautiful cuddlebugs. Welcome to Ramblings of a Book Dragon, where we dive into the warmth of good books and unravel stories that feel like a literary hug. I'm Allie, your host, and I'm thrilled to embark on another cozy adventure with you. So grab a cup of your favorite beverage, snuggle into your cozy reading nook, and let's begin. But before we do, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss a single episode. I really value your feedback and book recommendations. Now let's begin. Today is the day after Valentine's Day, and I'm really excited to review Enemy of My Dreams, written by Jenny Williamson and narrated by Lisa Flanagan. And Jenny Williamson is part of the duo for Ancient History Fangirl with her friend Jen, and it's just really exciting because this is her first fiction book that she's written, and this is also like they had written a Women of Mythology book before. I need to read it because it sounds really cool. But this is based at the end of the Roman Empire when Alaric of the Visigoths came in and destroyed Rome. And so we get a lot of the tensions at the end of the Roman Empire, and it's just really just a lot of fun. The main female character, Julia is a Roman princess, and she isn't based on a real character, real person, though Alaric is of course real, but Julia is an amalgamation of a couple different people from a couple different women from ancient Rome, and that's really cool to be able to learn more about. And like in the podcast reviews that she's given to discuss the book as it's come out, listening to her describe all of that, and so I would recommend listening to those if you're able to do that. But it's a romance book where it's Julia and Alaric, and it's a slow burn, and I really like the way that she wrote it. It really, because like they do a lot about ancient history, they talk a lot about ancient Rome, and you can really feel just how much detail, how much research went into this book. But at the beginning of the book, we meet Julia, and she has lived a life as a Roman princess full of excess, wine, philosophy, and scandal. So her brother is wanting her to get married to this guy named Octavius, and she's like, I do not want to marry this man. I need to find someone else. And so she's had all these different lovers, and so she's developed a bit of a reputation. And her brother, the emperor, is threatening to send her off to this island where it's basically a death sentence, anyone who gets sent to this island, and she knows it too. So she's needing to come up with a way of avoiding either option, of either being married off to this guy that she doesn't want or being sent off to this island to die. So also at the same time of all of this, Alaric was invited to come to Rome because they want him, because they're offering him and his people land near the Danube River, but he knows that, like, he's refusing because he knows that this is basically just sending his people to die, because they would be the first line of defense against any of Rome's enemies. And so he's like, this is a slap in the face. This is insulting. I'm not doing this, but I'm going to Rome to see the emperor and see what we can come up with that is not a death sentence, because they've already, like, he had fought alongside the Roman legions. Like, he knows these people, and he was brought in after the Huns had attacked his family, his people from before, and he was, quote, adopted into the Roman camps, and he made his way from being a slave in the mines to moving in to becoming a Roman soldier, and he was trained by one of the top commanders because he had recognized that Alaric was supposed to die in the Colosseum, and he had actually killed the animal that was supposed to kill him, and that's how he had gotten himself into the situation, because he had killed someone else, and so his punishment was supposed to be to die a horrific death by an animal. And we actually see this in the book because Julia, she was going to run away with one of her lovers named Cornelius, and his mom actually went to her and said, hey, why don't you marry my son? We can offer you protection. Like, my family is at the far end of the Roman Empire. We can protect you. We can offer you this service, because she's going to need protection against her brother for running away and marrying someone else. And there's a plus and a minus here. The plus side is that Julia had accidentally ran into Alaric on the way to see Cornelius because Alaric, he was there and he was kind of just walking around, and they had a fun little moment where he was like, "Oh, you're a pet. You're someone's pet. Why are you out here in the middle of the night? Don't you know what can happen to a woman who's traveling alone?" And it was just a really fun scene. And we're first seeing that chemistry between Alaric and Julia. And then she met up with Cornelius, and unfortunately, they were captured, and Cornelius was put to death in the Colosseum. And Julia hates these gladiatorial events. She hates all this bloodshed and violence, and she doesn't know what is going to happen until Cornelius is put in with these wolves. So she is being forced to watch her lover die. And so she realizes, okay, I need to assassinate my brother, the emperor. So she gets this all set up, and there's supposed to be this big feast where Alaric is the guest of honor, and he shows up late, and Julia thought she got it all figured out with her brother, and getting him assassinated by one of his bedmates, basically bed slave, and it wound up not happening the way it was supposed to. And there was going to be all of this drama because her brother's wine tester actually got really sick and died. So like they know, okay, someone is trying to poison the emperor. And so there's really tense moment, and Julia sees Alaric and realizes, okay, this is the same guy from before. They both see each other and they recognize, wait, what is she doing here? Because Alaric at first thinks that Julia is the emperor's lover, because she's all dressed up in her finery, and she's basically at the feet of the emperor at one of the tables that's right in front of him, so that he can watch her the entire time. It's very just with all the politics that are going on. And Julia grew up with all this, and she's tired of always being seen in a certain type of way. And like she's like, I don't care about my reputation, but I also don't want to be married off to a guy I don't want. So she, in a moment of brilliance, she hands Alaric a knife, and she's like, kidnap me, take me as your hostage. And so he does this, and they manage to escape, and he knows that someone is going to be sent after them. And Alaric takes her out of Rome, and he and his people split up. He has a small group with him, including these twins that he was raising, as well as a Hun that had joined the group. And finally, this other guy, Thorismund, he was a prince of his lands, and he needs to meet up with his army again. And just we start to see all the dynamics forming here. And Julia, at first, when they're leaving and traveling back to their main encampment, their main home, she realizes, okay, I need Alaric on my side. He has an army. I have to get myself an army. That's the whole point of all this. So she's trying to seduce him, and she's even saying like, I want you to give me an army. And he's like, no. And once he knows this, he is absolutely refusing to be seduced and kind of just being amused at her attempts. And he's like, you're throwing yourself at me for all of this. And at first, like, he wasn't even going to take her with him, but because he thought that she was just the emperor's lover. And she's like, no, you idiot, I'm the emperor's sister. This is who I am. So he's like, okay, well, I will take you back. You will be my hostage. And like, we just have all these fun scenes with the two of them. We get all the fun sass and the banter and just all of the fun things with the slow burn enemies to lovers situation. And there's even a scene where she was going to seduce him by going into this river and come out all dripping wet in her silk. And she realizes not only is the river cold, but it's also it's just not a good river to try to seduce someone in. And he's there watching her, and at first he thought that she was beautiful, but then like he's like, no, I'm not going to be seduced by this woman because she is Roman, she is a princess. I am not going to do this. I'm not going to play into her games. I know what she's wanting. And so he tosses her his shirt and tells her to wash it. and you are being an absolute beast of a man because I am in silk, I am wet, I need something to change into. And he then also, like, she tries to tell him to make her a bed. So he tells her, no, you're going to make me the bed or I'm going to tie you up. So she reluctantly makes the bed, but then she decides to actually put into his bed she puts nettles into his bed. And at first, and like, it just was just so much fun. This book was just all the fun things, and slowly but surely they finally develop more of a relationship, and we get the moments of the fun where he's like, are you sure you want to do this? Because like, he would kill for her, and we are here for that kind of love language, like blood being spilled for you. It's just the way that he said it, and the voice actress who was narrating all this was just perfect with all of it. And we get more of his, I'm going to stab someone, I'm going to kill someone, because she gets kidnapped, like she gets separated from the others, and also it's lovely just seeing the friendships that she's forming with the others that are in the small group. She becomes friends with the twins because she recognizes that they're young, they're like 15, and she's like 20, so she recognizes in them her brother, and so like and as much as she doesn't like her brother, she is wanting to befriend the twins. And then she also works on befriending the other two as well, and she actually becomes a brother with them, because later on they do, she and Alaric actually do get married. But my one complaint about this book, because it is just it's such a fun book, especially with Valentine's Day and everything, because we get this little burn, we get all the fun tropes, we get him wanting to kill for her, and she gets kidnapped and she's almost assaulted, but then he finds her and he is just pissed. But my one complaint is I don't like the lack of communication. I wish that they communicated more, because and obviously and I'm sure this will be better in book 2 because she's writing book 2, and I'm sure a lot of it is also just the different ideas that happen that are there between the Visigoths versus the Romans with how they do things, because he told her at the very beginning that a man presents jewels as a bride price for the bride, because she gave him all the jewels that she was wearing, because she wore all of her jewels, and so she gave him these as part of it, as part of her hostage thing. And so he's like, no, if I'm going to marry a woman, I'm going to present jewels to her. And when they finally do have sex, like their main communication seemed to be during sex, and I did really like the way that they did that with the build up, and it wasn't like with some romance novels where it's just pages and pages of smut. Like, it is a smutty book. I think she said in one of her interviews it was like a 7 out of 10, and I can see that. Like there's room for more, but it didn't feel like it was too much smut. Like, like there are some books that are just like, okay, let's get to the point. Let's get it over. Like, not even let's get it over with, but let's move forward a little bit. We don't need pages and pages and pages. But this, I felt like, was very easy to listen to. It didn't feel too corny. But I don't like the fact that their main times where they are actually communicating with each other about what they're wanting is during sex. Like, he was making these promises to her that he is going to give her an army, he's going to lay down, he is going to give her an empire, he's going to give her jewels. But this is said during sex. And for Julia, she was raised to believe that love is not something that you get in a marriage, because that's how it is in the Roman courts. So she doesn't really believe him when he's saying all this, because it was during sex. And he's thinking to himself, because we get kind of both minds, is I told her these things, I made these promises, and then we had sex. Like, she is my wife. She didn't realize that she was his wife. Like, and because at first he was even telling her, I'm going to make you my concubine. Like, I will keep you safe. You don't have to go back I'm not sending you back to your brother, but I'm not going to make you my wife. I'm going to make you my concubine. And she's like, no, she is a Roman princess, and she's not going to just give herself to this man, because they had a couple of moments before they finally had sex where it was very close to them doing this, where it was very, very close. But she's thinking to herself too, like, she is a virgin. Like, she's done things, but she hasn't gone all the way. And he's thinking to himself, like she's throwing herself at him, she's offering herself to him, that okay, maybe she's done something before, but it's that lack of and I'm thinking this will be the case, like, because they finally get to that point later on where she is like, make me your queen. I'm gonna be your queen in truth or not at all. Because like, especially at the end, and I was like, yes, we love that. Like she did something there, like props, snaps, as they say. But like it took a lot of the book for them to get to that point. And then like at one point he was pretty pissed off at her because he thought that she had betrayed him, because they had finally made it back to the town that they were in, and he had to leave because there was this whole great big thing, because he was trying to get the other chieftains on his side, because they're annoyed because why are you marrying a Roman princess? Why are you making her queen of the Goths? Like, no. And it took a little, and it even took a little bit for her to think like, okay, he's making me his queen. Like it took a little bit of like them kind of thinking different things, but then someone else had mentioned to him, she thinks that none of that happened. She doesn't know that he made her his wife. Like she doesn't know this. And so then there were several other moments of doubt throughout the book where, again, it was that lack of communication. But I also see the point there. Like I don't like it when they do lack of communication for the dramatic effect. And I'm hoping that in book 2, now that she's set now, because at the end of the book, she's like, make me your queen, or I'm not in truth, or not at all, because he had promised her that she was his queen, but then he never really talked to her about things. Like she can do things, because growing up before the start of the book, she helped create an aqueduct system for the manor that she was in that made it better. And she's seeing here with this town, like the aqueducts are broken and they're not working. And this can be my way of helping get everyone on my side. Because if they're not getting fresh water, and they know that they're going to be attacked because Alaric's mentor was sent to bring an army, and that hasn't happened yet, but it's kind of just like, okay, if we're under siege and there's no fresh water, there's going to be plague. And if there's plague, then like they're all going to die. And she knows this. So she's like, let's get this fixed now. And he gives her permission to do that before he leaves. But then unfortunately, it turns out that it's actually a trap, because the woman that was Cornelius's mom and had talked her into this situation, she lives nearby, and she actually owns she owns a mine. And so she basically, like, there's this whole big trap that's there. So like she's trying to get this aqueduct started, but then they get attacked, and they find out the truth of the matter with this other woman, and she's mad because she had to watch her son get killed by wolves. And like, you can't really blame her, but I kind of wished that there was a bit more of a communication, because Julia, she went back into princess politics mode, and she's like, well, I know that she's not really going to understand, but at the same time, I was thinking like, okay, maybe she could have said like, I'm sorry about the death of your son. Like, I know that's not going to mean much, but that affected me too, having to watch him get killed, like trying to maybe have a moment. And I also think like maybe that's more of my modern sensibilities coming into play. I don't know, but I can see I can see what the author was, I can see what Jenny was doing with this. And I did really truly love this book. I wish there was a few too many times where lack of communication, and they were kind of both inside of their own heads, and they didn't really have a talk until the end of the book, because like I said, Alaric feels that she had betrayed him, because they get captured trying to get back into the town, and Julia knows that this woman, like her guard was threatening to poke his eyes out with a hot rod, and she's like, no, don't do that. But she's like, oh, I lied. I don't really love him. I was setting this all up. in order to get what I wanted. But yeah, let me do the torture, because I know what my brother would want. I know he would want to have a triumph and then torture him and do all of that himself. So she's going, and because of all of this, and she's like, do you trust me? Because that same thing happened with Alaric when he was getting the chieftains to believe in her when they were at this other little village, and because they were wanting to throw Julia back out to the Romans that were out there before, and so he had to throw these knives at her. And I see. But she had immediately kind of figured out, because she was also warned that, hey, what was happening before was just a game. Like, okay, it's a serious game, but I do. And it was just this big thing that happened. And he told her when that was all done that you're going to give me a son. You're still my wife. You're going to give me a son, but then I'm going to send you far away to the farthest tower. So she runs away. And I didn't quite like how the last bit of the book was, because it just, like, throughout the book we have a lot that's going on, but then in the last, like, after this was at about the 75% mark of the book, 70% way through. And it's just all of these things that are happening. And it's because she ran away. And I completely get why she ran away, because she knew she was going to be miserable, and he wasn't wanting to even listen to her because he was so pissed. And, like, you can't blame him, because he was tortured with a flaming rod to his chest, and it poked a hole in him. And it's amazing that he didn't get sick and die from that, because that's just like, oh, poor baby. And she was trying to make it so that it wasn't too terribly, like, she was like, okay, she was doing the torture, yes, but she was doing it to save him from an even worse torture, like getting your eyes gouged out, which is just like, we don't like that. No. But I did like, I liked, but just like, she was brought into these mines, like, she was captured and she was brought into these mines as a slave, and like, she was kind of getting into the mine and kind of just like, okay, this is how I'm going to die. And we needed to have a low moment. I understand that, but it felt like there was a lot that was going on, because then she winds up getting out, and she runs into one of the twins that wound up being kicked out by Alaric because he was telling the truth. And everyone, like Alaric and all of them, thought that she had died in a fire. So she was able to run away and stuff. And that was part of how she was able to run away, was because there was a fire that was set up by a friend of hers who was there as well. But then, like, we do get to the happy ending of the book where they're finally brought back together, and that's when she tells him, I'm going to be your queen in truth, or not at all. Like, pick your poison, because he realizes that he went a little cuckoo. He went a little insane without her, because he thought that he had accidentally caused her death because he had locked the door on her, and so she wasn't able to get out. So he went a little crazy at the end. So, and she was threatening to leave him because, like, she's already left him before, and she was fine. Like, she will land on her feet. Okay, she wasn't fine because she was a slave for even knows how long, but it was like till the end of the summer, and she managed to get back out. So, assuming then that she's able to actually get in with a good group to travel and try to avoid Roman capture again, she will be fine. But he begs her not to go. And he's like, I will give you whatever you want. What do you want? And so I'm hoping in the second book, because at the end of the book, we were getting into the whole final idea of him sacking Rome, because he is pissed because her brother executed 30,000 Goths that were living there, Visigoths that were living around Rome and stuff, and he just executed them all. So he is angry, and with good reason, obviously, because that was just a big FU. And this all happened, and so they're like, okay, we are going to burn down Rome, because she was in these marble mines, and so she doesn't want to see marble ever again. So I think that was a good way of getting that all set up and everything. And he has his people, and so, like, there's still going to be a little bit more there, of course, with the second book, with continuing to get all of the chieftains on their side. She is going to be his queen in truth, and they are going to burn down Rome. And just It's just going to be so fun. Well, not fun for Rome, but I'm curious to see where this is going to go because he was killed in the end. So, and we kind of know some of the things that were happening with some of the other people in history, obviously. So I'm curious if she's going to continue to stick with that, because they've said throughout the book that if one dies, the other is following. They do not want to live without the other. Even though that didn't happen when he thought that she had died in the fire, but that's a good thing. We don't want that. But I'm sure if they see it in flesh, in reality. So that's going to be curious to see how that all goes. But yes, I absolutely love this. And I know Valentine's Day is over, but I think that this would be a great book to read in general if you really like history and you like some smut, but not too much smut. I felt like she did a really great job with that. At least to me, it's not fairy porn. But what is besides A Court of Thorns and Roses? What is? But I thought that it was really well done, and I really liked the immersive experience of reading this and just feeling like, okay, we are in ancient Rome, we are going around, we're just having all this stuff that's happening, and just all the characters really felt like they were well fleshed out and brought to light, and it'll be really nice to see how that continues to progress into book 2. So I will catch you beautiful cuddlebugs next time. Stay warm and cozy. Bye!